In this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the X-Men affiliation led by none other than Charles Xavier, Professor X. Hey guys, Rich from Richmond Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. Well, welcome to this, another Marvel Crisis Protocol video, and happy Friday, and welcome to your leadership stroke affiliation breakdown, where I pick one of the, or I should say you pick one of the leaders in Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I will do a breakdown of the entire affiliation under them, ranking each of the characters. Now, I gave everybody an option over in our community tab. It was either Peter Parker for the Web Warriors, it was Mystique for the Brotherhood of Mutants, or Professor X. And with almost 200 of you voting and over 55% of the votes, Professor X was an absolute out-and-out winner. So that is what we are going to be doing today. So let's jump over and take a quick look then at our tier list and how we're going to be ranking each and every character. So S through to D. S tier is going to be absolutely exceptional. You're probably going to see this character in every single squad that is built around Professor X. A tier is going to be very, very good. An absolute include in your roster, but maybe you don't get to play them every single time. B tier is going to be absolutely fine, perfectly serviceable, nothing wrong with them whatsoever. C tier is going to be okay, but it may be that there are better options in affiliation, usually at the same threat level, because it is quite a big affiliation in the X-Men, so there may just be some better options out there. And lastly is going to be D tier, which for me right now would be do not touch. There are probably better options for you out there, either in or indeed outside of affiliation. So before we get into ranking each of the characters, let's remind ourselves about Charles Xavier, Professor X, and take a look at his card. So the brand new leader of the X-Men, he's coming in with a 226 stat line on his defensive side. He's going to be a 4 threat. He's going to be 6 stamina on his front. He's going to be size 2, and he's going to be a medium move, but I believe he's on a medium base. Yeah, gives him a little bit more movement than the average character. His first ability, or his first attack even, Psychic Dart. This is going to be power equal to damage dealt, range 4, strength 5, and a root on a wild. That root's really, really nice. Mental Suggestion. This is going to be range 3, strength 6, cost 1 power, and if you deal damage, you get to advance the target its speed. Can be really, really good on those long movers to get them out of the way, or just to move some guys off points to be able to wrap up some VPs at the end of a round. Astral Jewel is going to be his big spender. Range 3, strength 4, cost 3, but you're going to add dice equal to the target's mystic defense, and the target character cannot reroll or modify dice, defense dice during this attack. So it bypasses a lot of defensive tech that's out there. Still, I'm not over enamored with that as a spender. Let's take a look at the main thing that we want to look at here, which is going to be Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, obviously his leadership for the Uncanny X-Men. Once per turn, when an allied character spends 1 or more power to use an active or reactive superpower, after the effect is resolved, another allied character may gain 1 power. Now, I really like this leadership. I'm not over enamored with Professor X as a character as a whole, but I really, really do like this leadership. And that's really what we're going to be looking at, is characters that can benefit from that 1 extra power, but also characters that have the ability for us to be able to dish some power out as well. Let's just finish off his card. Professor's Guidance is going to be cost X. While another allied character within range 4 is attacking or defending during the modified dice step of the attack, this character may spend 1 to 3 power. For each power spent, the allied attacking or defending character may reroll 1 of its dice. We've seen it before. It can only be used once per turn, but it is really, really nice, especially on some of those big hitters where you really want to maximize their damage output. And then lastly, Omega level telepath. This character cannot be pushed or advanced by the effects of mystic attacks or enemy superpowers. So meaning that he's going to kind of stay where he is. You know, sort of a backish point holder, being able to pick off people with his mental suggestion. And then really what you want him in there for is that leadership, but also that professor's guidance, maximising the damage output of some of your other characters. So with all that said and done, it is time to jump into the actual affiliation of the characters themselves. And we're going to be starting out, because we do these in alphabetical order, with Beast, aka Henry McCoy. Now, the things that we're going to be focusing in on are really going to be those active and reactive abilities, and what that means and what he can do. And what I'm really interested in is, are there any characters in the X-Men who can really turn things on round one, or indeed are there some people outside of affiliation that we'll cover at the end who I think could be really, really good indeed. Beast is a 3-threat. You know, he's up against some stiff competition. Baser Instincts costing 2 is can be really nice, and it can be really nice in 2 different ways. First of all, because it's only a 2 cost, it means we're only going to need to get 1 power into him for him to be able to do this character throw round 1, which means he could make a double move and then throw a character off a point. But when he spends that 2 power, it means that he's going to be generating it for somebody else. So he needs somebody else to trigger this for him first and be able to push the power into him, but then he can do this and it's going to be generating a power for another character as well, which is really nice. And then he's got Stars and Garters. After this character rolls defense or dodge dice, it may spend up to 3 power. To use this superpower, for each 1 power spent, you get to reroll one of your defense or dodge dice. Again, this could just be a really good way of being able to spend the power and effectively just hand it out to anyone in the team. And because there's no range limit on Professor X's leadership, I think it could work really well. He's also got some good power generation in himself, and he is a pretty good controlling character, which I feel like this version of the X-Men really want to lean into. For me, guys, I actually really like Beast under Professor X. I think you can turn him on round 1 very easily, and I also think he's going to be a great source of power generation, both in and indeed outside of your turn, because of that Stars and Garters being a reactive ability. So for me, I think he's absolutely fine, perfectly solid. I wouldn't be surprised to see him being taken, so he's going to go straight into B tier for me. Okay then, guys, next up, one of the other newer members of the X-Men is, of course, Bishop, aka Lucas Bishop. First 4-threat that we're going to be taking a look at. Now, I do quite like Bishop overall. And I think he's got some really nice things that he can do. Absorbed energy conversion is going to be the only superpower, the only active or reactive superpower that we're going to be able to really benefit from here. And it is a throw, so it is quite nice. It does cost 3. So it does mean that if we want to use this round 1, we are going to be relying on somebody else putting power into us. But actually, I still think Bishop is going to be very solid. He brings some much needed energy attacks into X-Men. Yes, there's a couple of others, but the fact that he dishes out the Incinerate on there as well, and then his return with interest is any of the 3 types of attack. I think he's very solid. He has got the weird thing where if he's got over 8 power, he suffers 1 damage, so you really want to be able to power dump with him, so you're really going to have to manage how much power you potentially put into him. Mutant energy absorption is absolutely amazing. So even though he only has the 1 active superpower that he's going to be able to contribute, I still think he's going to be really solid. And because of that, he is going to go also into B tier, but I am going to put him just ahead of Beast. I think there are probably going to be some better 4-threats in the game, and we have to remember that we are bringing a 4-threat leader as well. But yeah, that's where he's sitting for me right now. Okay, next up, one of the only 2 5 threats in affiliation, and it is the much improved Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Let's have a quick look then. So he's got quite a few different powers here. Or superpowers here that we can lay into. So we've got body slide by 1, and the nice thing about Cable is he's going to be able to use that body slide by 1 turn 1 because he does generate an extra power, meaning he can then push a power into another character. Now another character could be somebody like a Wolverine, or indeed any other character who can turn on a superpower round 1, and then you can almost set up this chain of things that you can do. So I do really like Cable. Omega level threat is going to be another superpower that's going to cost 1 to 4, so you can almost just spend the 1 power and use it almost as like a little advanced R&D or an Inhumans leadership with absolutely no restriction in range. So I do really like that. And he also has his telekinetic shield, which is going to be a reactive superpower, which means he's going to be able to generate power outside of your turn as well. I think the only thing that or the only problem I really have with Cable is that he is a 5 threat character. However, even saying that, that telekinetic shield is going to be really nice and to actually help Professor X stay alive that little bit longer with those rerolls on his plasma rifle and those rerolls that Professor X are going to provide him. I think he's going to be really good. I'm kind of torn in terms of where I put him. I don't know whether to put him in at the top end of B tier or at the bottom end excuse me, of A tier. I think for now, I'm going to put him at the top end of B tier. Oh, let's just move him around there. But with the caveat that once we start to put some other people in play, it may be that he moves up or indeed moves down a little bit ever so slightly. So we'll compare and contrast him to everybody else. Okay, guys, next up is going to be another 4 threat. Yes, we have a lot of 4 threats in X-Men, and it is going to be Colossus, aka Piotr Rasputin. Things that we're looking at here are playing catch, so it's another. It's only a terrain throw, so it's not a character throw, which has less viability. I think you really want that turn. The reason you want a turn 1 character throw is to be able to just double move up to a point and throw them off. It does cost 3 power as well, but the 2 big ones are going to be his big brother costing 2, which is his pseudo bodyguard, and Bosmoy, which lets him add 2 dice to his defense roll, only against physical or energy, but even so, still bumps him up to a 6/5, which is very good indeed. I think he's pretty solid overall. He's some kind of much needed bodyguard protection for Professor X to keep him up and running. He's not going to feed into and really be that power generator turn 1, which I think is something that we really want in this affiliation. But even saying that, I think he's still going to be very solid. So for me, I'm going to put him in B tier, and I'm going to put him just ahead of Beast. I think you're going to see him in a lot of rosters. I think he's almost and probably an auto include in your roster, so it may be that he could be an A tier, but I just think he's lacking a little bit of something to really synergize really well with Professor X's leadership ability. Okay then, guys, so up next we have got the first of our other leaders in the affiliation, in the X-Men, and that is going to be Cyclops, aka Scott Summers. Now, 6 months ago, you wouldn't have dreamt of taking Cyclops, probably even as your leader, let alone outside of, not outside of affiliation, but underneath another leader. Now, we have to remember there are some tactics cards in the game that let you switch between one leadership and the other, but we are judging this list purely on taking Professor X as our leader, and therefore we're just judging Scott under Professor X's leadership. We're not judging him under his own or anything else like that. So what we're focusing on here, he's got Field Leader, which allows somebody else to get up the board, which can be really, really nice. Hit and Run, which again is a little bit of movement for him, and that Quick Draw. Whilst I think Cyclops is a really, really good leader, and whilst I would say I think there's a lot of value in taking Cyclops in your roster as a choice of a second leader, depending on the matchup that you're coming against. Obviously Professor X, they do a similar thing. It's all around, it's all about power generation. Cyclops is a little bit more on the aggressive side, especially if you can get an Optic Devastation off, versus Professor X's control side, and then you've got the mix of energy versus Mystic. So whilst I think, and I want to caveat this, I would probably be taking Scott in my X-Men roster anyway. Even if I was planning on Professor X being my first leader, Scott would just be there as a second leader, and I probably wouldn't be playing him under X-Men. And because of that, even though I think Scott is a really, really good character now, I don't think he's going to add a great amount to what we're doing with Professor X. And because of that, he is going to go into C tier. I just think there are better options out there who can do quite a bit more, especially at a 4 threat. So yeah, there we go. Okay, next up then is another 3 threat, Nina Thurman, aka Domino. Now she has only one thing that she gets to use, which is probability manipulation. However, she gets to use it effectively whenever she is rolling dice for anything other than an extract play. So probability manipulation, it costs X, and you can spend X amount of power to basically count skulls as crits, which is pretty darn good to say the least, and that is in attack, defense, or dodge rolls. She's a really good 3 threat. She's a very, very good 3 threat, and even though she's only bringing that one thing in with her, because of those automatic pistols, she's able to generate some really nice power to pay for that herself, and then she'll be able to, just spending one again is going to siphon that power into other people. I think she's really, really solid. For me, I think she's up there with some of the best 3 threat characters in the game right now, and because of that, she is going to go straight into I was going to say the top of A tier, but straight into A tier. Still not a character that, if you give her one power, she's going to be able to do amazing things, but she's just so solid and so consistent, that I think she's going to be pretty darn good, really, for any X-Men leadership. Okay then, so Emma Frost up next. First of all, in her normal, she has got 3 reactive superpowers: Diamond Form, Shield Mind, and Telekinetic Deflection. If we move over to her Ice Form, I think it's, Diamond Form even, sometimes one must get their hands dirty, and then that is it. So not a huge amount in terms of synergy with Professor X, and everything she does is very much dependent on your opponent targeting her with an attack. But even so, saying that, Psychic Spike, being able to bend will, and that hands off having the throw in there, is really, really good. I just think there are better. It's a little bit like Scott. I think she's a really good character. She, especially with that power inhibition, so they can't use reactive superpowers or team tactics cards during her turn. That can be really, really good. But even so, she has so much competition out there, and she's a big Mystic player, and guess what, we've already got that with Professor X. They kind of do the same job. They're a back point holder. They're going to move people around the board and move your opponent around the board and get them off points, get them away from her. So I think there's just too much crossover between what she does and what Professor X does. So again, I am going to put her into that C tier, and I am going to put her just behind Scott, purely because I think Scott deserves a little bit of recognition for the fact that he is, again, as I mentioned, he is a character who I think I would be taking in my X-Men roster. I'm just not going to be taking him whilst I'm playing Professor X. Next up then is everyone's favourite Cajun. It is, of course, Gambit, aka Remy LeBeau. So we've got 3 things that we're looking at here. So first of all, he's a 3 threat, but he's got accelerated charge, where he gets to add 2 dice to his next attack action. Important that note, because it does mean that on his 52 card pickup, he is going to be able to add 2 dice to each of them, making it a 7 strength beam 4 attack. A little something extra allows him to spend 1 power and change 1 hit to a wild. So it's not a guaranteed way of being able to spend the 1 to then generate it for somebody else. But you'd imagine on 5 dice on his kinetic ace, for example, he's going to be able to get that off more often than not. And then lastly, enhanced agility. After an attack targeting this character resolved, this character may use his superpower. The attacking character suffers a 1 damage, and then he may move away short. I think Remy, or should I say Gambit, could be quite good under Professor X. He's definitely a character that I think shines a little bit more underneath him, and the fact that he's a 3 threat means that we want to have plenty of 3 threats on option for us. So I'm actually going to put him a little bit higher than what I have done in previous X-Men lists, and I'm going to put him into B tier. I do think that's a little something extra as a turn 1 to be able to really get some power out and turn on some of those turn 1 abilities for other characters could be really, really good indeed. Okay, next up then we've got the only in affiliation 2 threat. It is, of course, Gabrielle Kenny, aka Honey Badger. She doesn't really do much with the synergy. She's got too dangerous to ignore, and really other than getting the 1 extra power into her round 1, to then be able to have the too dangerous to ignore turned on, there isn't really much else that she's bringing to the game. And for me, there are some better 2 threats, one in particular that I will talk about, who can really change up what X-Men can do round 1 at the end of this video. So for me, whilst I think she's absolutely fine, I think if you're looking for a 2 threat, there are probably some better options out there. And the fact that she can't benefit from the big, is it first class, I think I want to say, whatever the tactics card is that lets you basically get the power back for the first thing that you interact with or objective that you interact with round 1. She doesn't benefit from that anyway. So bringing a 2 threat out of affiliation, I think doesn't really hamper you in any way. And because of that, she is going to go down to the bottom of C tier. I just don't think she's really bringing much in terms of what she's doing. Okay, next up, another brand new 3 threat is, of course, Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. I really like Iceman. He's got some great power generation that he can do himself with that beam 3, gaining 1 at the end of each attack. Like I said, he's another 3 threat, and he's got a couple of superpowers that can help him a little bit. So freeze and fade, it's going to cost 2 power. It's going to be an action, but it's going to be a move followed by an attack. But the difference here is that he counts as size 5, so that means he's going to be able to move over any terrain. He effectively has flight or wall crawler. So yeah, it means he can get around. He's only a medium move, but even so, it does mean that he can get around the board. And then lastly, Ice Slide. When it begins to move within 2 of another allied character of size 2 or less, it may use his superpower. After this move action is resolved, place the allied character within range 2 of its current position. Can only be used once per turn. So it's like a lift-off or whatever it is that Captain Sam has, again costing 2 power. And again, it's another one of those abilities that I think synergizes really well with some of the other characters. So, you do something on somebody else to get 1 power into Iceman. Iceman can then turn 1, use this to be able to either use freeze and fade and get himself up the board, followed by an attack, or use Ice Slide to get another character up the board and himself as well, and then put another power into somebody else. So again, these chain effects of just constantly pushing power from one character to another, you can start to really stack that up and really turn on some turn 1 plays. I really really like Iceman. I think he's going to be really, really good in the game. He's got a huge amount of movement on there as well because of that ice slide, and again because of that freeze and fade. He's got some good action economy. So for me, he is going to go a little bit higher than what people maybe think I would put him, but I am going to put him up to A tier, behind Domino. But I do think Iceman is going to be really, really good, and I think he's a character that you should definitely take a look at as and when he's released. I don't think he's out here in the UK at the moment because we have had some problems with shipping. Okay, next up is going to be Jean Grey, aka Jean. She's another 5-threat character. She has a sort of combination of mystic and physical attacks. She's got 3 things that we're looking at here. First of all, battlefield manipulation. It's a terrain size 4, costs 3, and it's a medium. It's fine. Matter transmutation. She's another character with the activated token within range 2 and push it short. A character can be moved by the superpower once per turn. I really wish that this was only costing 2 power, because for 3, that 3 power seems a little high. And then lastly, Shield Mind. When this character or an allied character within range 4 would be advanced, placed, or pushed by the effects of an enemy psychic attack or mystic attack, or enemy superpower, this character may use his superpower. The allied character is not advanced, placed, or pushed. And I'd like that to have included Throne as well. That would have been really, really good. She does generate 2 extra power each turn, which means she is one of the few characters in X-Men who can turn on her abilities turn 1, but it's a terrain throw and it's somebody else with an activate token and pushing it short. Turn 1, there's not a lot of value in that. So, guys, you know my thoughts on Jean. I just don't like her as a character. I think for 5-threat, if you look at what she does versus what Cable does, it is night and day. Now, I know that Professor X does bring that new Uncanny X-Men card where you get to, choose a character with at least 5 Mystic Defense, obviously, which Jean Grey does have. And it increases the range, adds 1 die, defense, all that kind of stuff. But even with that, it for me just isn't worth it. So unfortunately, Jean, even under the guidance of Professor X, for me, you are going into D tier. Just not worthwhile at all. Okay, next up then is going to be James Logan Howlett, aka Logan the Wolverine. Doesn't really add anything into the synergy. Still a really good character. What I do isn't very nice is going to be his only active superpower, so he can either benefit from or indeed push out there. He can't, unless you're getting 2 power into him, he isn't going to be able to use this round 1. And realistically, he might not be able to use it round 1 anyway, because it is an X/attack action, and then you get to throw the characters. So there's no charge in there, which the other version of Wolverine does have. He's a 4-threat, and again, he's up against some stiff competition for 4-threat characters. Yes, he can deal out a huge amount of damage, but for me, it always comes back to the fact that if I take this version of Logan, then I can't take the other version of Logan. So because of that, and this may annoy some people, but because of that, I am going to put him down at the bottom of C tier. And the main reason for that is the fact that if I take this version, I can't take my preferred version, which is going to be the OG Wolverine. Okay, next up then, let's take a look at Sister of Colossus, Ileana Rasputin, aka Magik. And this is a character who I think could be very, very good under Professor X. And why do I think that? Well, Limbo Step. So Limbo Step costs X, and it is a range 1 to 3 place based on, whether you spend 1, 2, or 3 power. Why do I think this is really good? Well, a range 1 place and then a medium move is going to get her onto a midpoint, and people, it is a guaranteed way of being able to get another power onto another character. So it's the first time we've seen a guarantee you can do it every single time. Actually, no, sorry, we did have it with Cable. I do apologize. We did have it with Cable because he does generate 2 power. So another example of where she can generate that 1 power. And again, that creates the chain effect. Your first activation, if you can generate 1 power, or if you can use 1 active superpower, you can create a chain effect to generate power for everybody else in your affiliation, because most starting or most characters superpowers cost 2. Just on generally you have 1 power to start with, therefore you need 1 more power to be able to turn those on. I think she's going to be really, really good. I really, really like her for this, and because of that, again, this may surprise quite a few people, but because she's a 3 threat as well, I am going to put her in there right at the very, very top of B tier. And the reason for that is, that guaranteed power generation. I think it's going to be really, really good. And I think it's going to be something that you really want to guarantee that you've got turn 1 in Professor X's X-Men. Okay, next up, another brand new character that, again, we haven't had released yet over here in the UK is, of course, Nightcrawler, aka Kurt Wagner. And this guy's a 4 threat, but he's a 4 threat who is going to do a huge amount of work for you. First of all, he has got his BAMF. So we spoke about how Magik has that range, that place. He's going to be able to get that as well. He's also got Puff of Smoke. Now, I want to double check, actually. Let me just double check the wording on this. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. I think on Professor X's, when they spend 1 or more power. Okay, I did think that, not just when they do it. So Puff of Smoke isn't going to generate the extra power for you, even though it's a reactive superpower. You're not spending power on it, so therefore you don't get it. And then he's Unglaublich, I can never say it right, acrobatics. I really like Nightcrawler. I think he's going to be pretty solid. I'm actually going to go back, guys, and I am going to change a couple of things around. So what I'm going to do is, because Nightcrawler has that trigger that he can do, or that chain that he can start turn 1, I am going to put him at the top end of B tier, but what I'm also going to do is I am going to bump Magik up, and I'm actually going to put her above Domino. I think Magik could be a real key piece here, especially if you want to keep completely X-Men, to be able to start that chain that you need to be able to generate all of that power for each of your characters. So there we go, a slight alteration. Still think Nightcrawler is really, really good, by the way, but I do think that Magik is actually going to be exceptionally good. Okay, next up, Psylocke, aka Elizabeth Braddock. She's just not a character that I really like. I don't know what it is. I saw in the last X-Men video, you guys, I think it might have been the X-Force video, actually, where I ranked her quite low. I just think if you look at what she does and then look at what Magik does, they are very similar, and she costs the threat more. And in this scenario, has less synergy with Professor X. So because of that, I am going to rank her lower. She's not going all the way down to the bottom. I still think she's got some value, especially with all the extra movement and things that she gets. She can dish out a stun, which is quite nice. She does have the rerolls, but it is only for herself. I think she's probably going to go sort of mid-level C tier. I think she's fine. I just think for me, there are some better options out there. in terms of characters that you can choose from. Okay, next up then is going to be Rogue, aka Anne-Marie LeBeau. She's another 4 threat. Again, we're full of 4 threats here. Things that I like about her. Whilst she doesn't have the ability to start the trigger, she does have the ability to benefit from it greatly with her charge action. So being able to get off a charge turn 1 essentially means that you, in most situations, you're going to be getting off 3 actions, which will be your initial move, your charge, and then your absorbing strike that you'll be able to do. Which is really, really good, by the way. If you do get that extra power into her, she can turn on Marvelous Strength, but again, it's only an interactive terrain feature, not a character, so a little bit less value there. Mutant Absorption is not to be sniffed at. It can be really, really clutch. So I do like Rogue. Again, she's up against some stiff competition in that 4 threat slot, but I think she's perfectly serviceable. I think she's absolutely fine. So for me, she's going to go into that B tier. Okay, next up then, guys. Again, another new addition. Who'd have thought it? All of these new additions to the X-Men. But it is going to be Shadowcat, aka Catherine Kitty Pryde. And not to forget, bringing her trusty Lockheed with her as well. She has 2 superpowers, 1 active, 1 inactive. Phase Rush is going to be allowing her to place herself within 2 of her current position. Again, it can only be used once per turn. And then Can't Touch This. It's another reactive ability when she is targeted. I think she's pretty good. She's a long mover. There is a lot to be said for a long mover, especially a long mover that also has a phase rush on there as well. So there is the potential here to be able to get her up to a central objective, being able to put that power into her, get to that central objective. She can pick it up. She can then... is she on a medium base or a small base? Good question. I'll be back with you 1 second. Okay, guys, sorry about that. So I was just double checking in my head because she had Lockheed with her. I had her in my mind that she was on a medium base, but she's on a small base, so she wouldn't be able to make that long move to that central objective. But with 1 extra power, she does have the ability to use something like Eyes on the Prize. But even outside of all of that, you're going to be using that phase rush almost every single turn with her. If you can get a power into her turn 1 and allow her to do it, she can get around the board and, contest points and being able to potentially make an attack as well, which will generate her another power. So I think she's going to be I think she's going to be good. I don't think she's going to be amazing. I think she's going to be good. And again, she's got reactive and active superpowers. She does benefit from the power being pushed into her. So because of that, she is going to go into B tier. But it is just whereabouts in B tier will she be? I think we're sort of going to go up to the higher end. Again, another 3 threat, but a 3 threat with a long move has a lot of value in there, which is why she's probably a little bit higher up than what you may think. Okay. Getting into the 3rd leader, or I suppose the 2nd or 1st, depending on it, but the 3rd leader that we've talked about today, and it is going to be Storm, aka Aurora Monroe. And again, this is going to be another character where I want to preface it with the fact that whilst you may take her as a 2nd option, we're not taking into account her leadership, right? That's one thing that we have to be very, very clear on here. So what has she got? She's got Eye of the Storm, which is going to give her 2 dice to attack rolls, and then Tempest, which is an interactive terrain feature or enemy character, but it does cost 3 power, which makes it that little bit more difficult to get off. People know I've never been a fan of Storm or indeed her playstyle. Again, if you wanted a 2nd leader, Cyclops and Professor X are very, very close. If you liked her playstyle and you wanted to take her as a secondary leader for different scenarios and setups, I would completely get that. For me, she just doesn't really do a lot. I know in the last chats, you guys, I think it was the Wakanda list, you know, a few of you had said out there that you'd had some really, really good success with her. She's just not for me. I would probably personally put her in D tier, but I think that's probably doing her a little bit of a disservice. I think she's going to go into C tier, but it is going to be the bottom end of C tier. Okay, next up then, guys, is going to be Wolverine, aka James Logan Howlett. Now, why do I like this guy? He's just the best at what he does. He's, for me, if you like attrition, which is absolutely what I do, he is up there 100%. He's not going to be able to be your first link in the chain or your starter of the chain that we've been talking about, but he is going to contribute and he is going to be able to continue that chain going. And there's the opportunity here to be able to really make some headway with Wolverine using a couple of other cards as well. So things like No Matter the Cost really amp up what he's able to do turn one. The best at what I do, obviously, is what we're talking about here, where it's a charge. He can then make an attack, but every wild counts as 2 successes, which can be, you know, absolutely devastating for your opponent. Using some other things like, to me, my X-Men, we already spoke about Iceman's drop off effectively, getting him further up the board, and, you know, then using a character maybe like a Magik to chain that. It's going to be really, really good, and I think he's a character that I will 100% be taking. His damage output is immense. You guys know where he's going, right? He's going into S tier. I just absolutely love this new Wolverine. I think he's exceptional. Also exceptional healing, which is quite nice. Dum. But yeah, I really like Logan, and I think he's going to do some absolute work in the new X-Men underneath the guidance of Professor X. Okay, rounding out the X-Men affiliation characters is going to be X-23, aka Laura Kinney. I think she's very, very good, by the way. She does a huge amount, but I think that talking about her just underneath Professor X, she doesn't really have anything that she benefits from. The only thing is you could potentially use her as a last activation, something like that, and then you can move her at medium, and then if you're in range to do a claw rush, especially if you've used to be my X-Men and you've got her further up the board, she can definitely benefit from that. But her only reactive ability is when she dazes or KOs an enemy character. It costs 2 power, which is fine. It's a really, really good ability, but it's not a guaranteed thing. And because it's not a guaranteed thing, I think she has to go slightly lower down in the rankings than what I would have otherwise put her. So some people may not like that, but she is going to be going slightly lower down. I still think she's perfectly fine, but I do think there are some better characters out there in that 3-threat spot. And again, guys, I am going to make a couple of... It's difficult because until you go through them all, you know, you then make a couple of different changes. So let's go back to the tier list. I am going to make a couple of changes to this. I've been thinking more and more about Magik, and I just think if you want a pure X-Men list, she is going to be pivotal. Yes, Nightcrawler can do the same thing. So Nightcrawler is also going to go higher up the list here as well. I'm going to put him to the top of A tier because they're the 2 characters that can start the chain. Cable can, but he costs 5. And for me, you've got your 3-threat is the S tier, your 4th threat is the A tier, and your 5th threat is the B tier. So I'm also going to bump up. Colossus just ever so slightly here, and then we are going to put X-23. She is going to go behind Beast. Now that may surprise a lot of people, but Beast has that ability to continue the chain going. He's got multiple abilities that allow him to be able to trigger that power, whereas X-23 really only has the one. So there we go. So look at those C tier characters. I think I'm happy with where they sit. So there we go, guys. That is going to be all of the X-Men characters ranked. You may hate it. You may agree with me. Let me know down in the comment section below. But I do want to talk about one other character. I mentioned that if you did want to take a 2-threat, I think there's going to be an exceptional 2-threat in this game, and he really mixes things up, and it's going to be Wong. Now, why is Wong going to be so good for us? Well, let's think about those turn 1 activations. First of all, he has something called Faithful Assistant. Choose another allied character within range 3 of this character. It gains 1 power. A character can be affected by this superpower only once per round. That's really nice. It's, you know, way of being able to, yes, it costs 1, but you're going to be able to send 1 out. Now, you have to remember that by doing that, we can choose to give another power, because it's an active superpower. We can choose to give another power to the same character who we've just given 1 to, or indeed another character. He has Meditate, which isn't going to trigger, so it isn't going to trigger that leadership ability, but it is going to gain him another power. So he can meditate once to give himself 2 power. He can then move up to a back point or something like that, and then he can use Faithful Assistant, costing him 2 power, leaving him on 0, to be able to give 2 power to a single character, or 1 power to one and 1 power to another. And for me, that will completely change the dynamic of which of these characters you can take. People with those 3 cost superpowers, all of a sudden now you can turn on round 1, which is really nice. One of the other things I really like is into Wolverine. If you give Wolverine 2 power, it means he's going to be starting on 3. He can spend 2 power on Best at What I Do, which is going to get him up the board, make his attack, and then you can use No Matter the Cost, and it's going to, rather than taking 3 damage and him being able to heal Fang Factor 2 off the back end of it, he's going to be able to use a power and then take 2 damage to be able to make the attack, meaning that he'll heal off all of the damage. But even without that, I just think Wong could be a little bit of a secret key. It also means then that you're not relying on Mystique, Nightcrawler or Cable to start that chain reaction off for you. You have a 2-threat character who can do that. But guys, as always, let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think of my list? I think Professor X, whilst I really wanted him to be somebody who could stand up against Magneto, I think he's still going to be a pretty solid leader. I really do like the leadership. Things that guarantee those that power generation, especially round 1 where it's so important, are going to really shine in this affiliation. And let me know what you think about Wong. Do you agree? Do you think he could be a little bit of secret sauce there for Professor X? As always, let me know down in the comment section below. Guys, I want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreons. Thank you so much for all of your support. It really does mean the world. You can join our Patreon from as little as £1 a month. But we also have our YouTube memberships now live from $2.99 a month. You can join our YouTube memberships. You're going to get all the same benefits as the Patreon. Plus, you're also going to get some cool little... I keep calling them stickers, but they're not stickers. They're sort of displayed when you leave comments in the comment section and on live chat and things like that. So If you do want to support the channel in either via Patreon or YouTube members, it's really appreciated. But you don't have to do either of those to support the channel. Just liking, sharing, making sure you've hit that subscribe button, and more importantly, leaving a comment down in the comment section below goes a long way to really helping the channel out. Make sure you head over to the Discord. We have our March crisis that is going to be happening. We're going to be doing the draw for that on Sunday. So you've only got a couple of days left to sign up. There is a couple of places left. So if you want to join in an event for the month of March, head on over to the Discord and you'll be able to see the details in there. And as always, guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.